Life for Sarah had become a tightrope walk. Every face in a crowd, every passing car, every unexpected sound sent a jolt of anxiety through her. The anonymous note had burrowed its way into her subconscious, painting the ordinary world with a layer of unseen menace. She tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, a fragile shield against the growing fear, but the feeling of being watched was a constant, suffocating presence. Today, she needed groceries, a mundane task that now felt fraught with potential danger. Mark, ever the pragmatic friend and now an increasingly concerned ally, had insisted on accompanying her. He tried to project an air of calm reassurance, but Sarah could see the worry etched on his face. They both knew the danger, however intangible it might seem to others, was very real to her. The symbol, the near miss with her bike, these weren't figments of an overactive imagination. Someone was targeting her as they moved through the throng. Sarah tried to focus on the vibrant colors and sounds of the market, a brief distraction from the gnawing unease. But then, amidst the sea of unfamiliar faces, her breath hitched. There, across the bustling aisle, partially obscured by a display of flowers, was the man. The man from her fleeting glimpse. The man who had vanished so quickly before. This time, she was certain. There was something about his posture, the intensity of his gaze, that sent a cold shiver down her spine. Her heart pounded in her chest. It wasn't just paranoia. This was him, the watcher, a tangible presence in her increasingly unreal reality. She subtly nudged Mark, her eyes fixed on the man. Mark, understanding the urgency in her silent cue, followed her line of sight. He saw the man, seemingly ordinary, yet there was an unsettling stillness about him, a predator observing its prey. Sarah knew she had to act. She couldn't let him disappear again. With a surge of adrenaline that momentarily eclipsed her fear, she started to move, weaving through the crowd, trying to get closer without alerting him. Mark stayed a few steps behind, a silent guardian, his senses on high alert. The lively atmosphere of the market suddenly felt suffocating, the cheerful chatter a distracting noise in their silent pursuit. The man had noticed. The subtle shift in his posture, the slight increase in his pace, betrayed his awareness. The chase was on. Sarah pushed through the remaining shoppers, her focus solely on keeping the man in sight. Mark followed, his journalistic instincts kicking in. He wasn't just worried for Sarah. A part of him recognized this as a crucial piece of the puzzle. Seeing the watcher in person, confirming his existence, was a significant development. Panic flared in Sarah's chest as the man disappeared behind a vibrant display of fabrics. Had she lost him already? She reached the stall, peering through the colorful textiles. He was there, moving quickly towards the edge of the market, towards a narrow alleyway that looked dark and uninviting. Without hesitation, Sarah followed, the image of the symbol on the note flashing in her mind. This man, she felt it in her bones, was connected to the threat, to the reason her life had become a tapestry of fear and uncertainty. Mark hesitated for a fraction of a second before following Sarah into the alley. The vibrant energy of the market was instantly replaced by a sense of unease and potential danger. This felt like a trap waiting to be sprung. The alley was a maze of shadows and dead ends. The man was moving fast, and Sarah struggled to keep up. The initial adrenaline was starting to wane, replaced by a growing sense of vulnerability. Suddenly, the man stopped. He turned, his eyes locking onto Sarah. There was no attempt to flee anymore, only a chillingly direct gaze. Sarah froze, a wave of fear washing over her. He wasn't just watching. He was aware she was watching him. This was no longer a passive observation. It was a confrontation. Before either of them could speak, another figure emerged from the shadows behind the man. Tall, imposing, with a face obscured by the dim light, this new presence added another layer of threat to the already tense situation. Mark, realizing the escalating danger, moved quickly to stand beside Sarah, his posture defensive. They were outnumbered, cornered in a narrow alleyway. The first man finally spoke, his voice low and devoid of emotion. "You should have stayed away." Sarah's mind raced. Stayed away from what? From the truth? from whatever secret her mother had kept. The encounter confirmed her fears. The note wasn't a random threat. She was being actively pursued. The taller figure stepped forward, and for a fleeting moment, a sliver of light caught his face. Mark gasped, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "You know him?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Mark's silence was a heavy confirmation. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the picture they were forming was far more dangerous and complex than they could have imagined. The Watcher wasn't just a stranger. He was connected to something, or someone, in their world. And the appearance of the second man, someone Mark recognized, had just thrown a terrifying new variable into the equation. The mystery behind the note was deepening, pulling them further into a web of secrets and danger. The world can change in an instant. One moment, the familiar rhythm of life, the next, a jarring, terrifying deviation. For Sarah, that deviation came in the form of a near-silent threat, a whisper of danger that was now screaming in the screech of metal and the sudden loss of control. The bicycle, her usual mode of transport, her symbol of independence, now lay crippled, a stark reminder of her vulnerability. This wasn't a random mishap. The deliberate nature of the brake failure was chillingly apparent. Someone wanted her hurt. The initial unease sparked by the anonymous note had solidified into tangible fear. The whispers in the quiet had become a tangible presence. Mark, ever the pragmatist, couldn't dismiss this. The bent brake cable wasn't an accident. It was a calculated act, a direct escalation. The game, if it ever was one, had turned deadly serious. Sarah said, I can't shake the feeling. It wasn't just the note or the feeling of being watched. This was intentional. Someone tried to hurt me. Mark said, we can't jump to conclusions, Sarah, but this does change things. The symbol on the note, the fleeting glimpse of that man. It's all starting to connect in a way that's deeply unsettling. Mark's research, initially a way to appease Sarah's anxieties, had unearthed something far more substantial, far more disturbing. The symbol wasn't some random doodle. It was the insignia of a clandestine organization, one shrouded in secrecy and whispered rumors of influence that stretched into the darkest corners of society. Its history was long and, from what Mark could gather, stained with unsettling incidents. The organization had seemingly faded into the background decades ago, its activities becoming the stuff of urban legends and forgotten files. But the resurfacing of their symbol, now directly linked to Sarah's life, suggested a dormant threat reawakening. The question that hung heavy in the air was, why now? And what did Sarah have to do with it? The face in the crowd, the fleeting glimpse of intense eyes. It was a detail Sarah couldn't shake. Compelled by a growing sense of dread, she had painstakingly recreated his features. When Mark saw the sketch, a flicker of recognition crossed his face. It was a face he had encountered in his research, though in a much older context, a photograph accompanying an article detailing the organization's activities in the past. Mark said, this man, I've seen him before. In some of the older materials I found, he was connected, deeply connected. The threads were beginning to weave together, forming a tapestry of unease and potential danger. The anonymous note, the feeling of being watched, the deliberate attempt to harm her. It wasn't random. It was targeted. And the target seemed to be Sarah, for reasons yet unknown. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Sarah and Mark delved deeper into the organization's history. The local library became their sanctuary and their battleground, the dusty tomes holding secrets they hoped would shed light on their predicament. They searched for any mention of the symbol, any connection to Sarah's past, any hint of why she might have become a target. Sarah said, I need to know why this is happening. Why me? I've done nothing. I don't understand. Mark said, we'll figure this out, Sarah. We will. There has to be a reason. Connection. Days turned into nights as they sifted through countless documents. Then a breakthrough. A faded newspaper article detailing a scandal that had rocked the organization decades prior. It spoke of internal conflict, of secrets being exposed, and of a key figure, a whistleblower, who had vanished without a trace before their information could be fully revealed. The name of that whistleblower, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor Vance. A name that struck a chord, a faint echo from a past Sarah barely knew. It was her mother's name, her deceased mother, about whom Sarah knew very little. A wave of confusion and a flicker of a terrifying possibility washed over her. Could there be a connection? Could the events of the past be casting a long, dangerous shadow over her present? Sarah said, "My mother. Eleanor Vance was my mother. I never knew much about her. She died when I was young." Mark said, "This could be it, Sarah. This could be the link. The organization, the scandal, your mother. It's too much of a coincidence." The pieces of the puzzle were slowly starting to fall into place, but the picture they formed was far from comforting. If her mother had been involved with this shadowy organization, if she had possessed information they wanted to suppress, then Sarah, her daughter, could now be in danger simply by association, by the inheritance of a past she never knew. The near miss with the bicycle had been a stark warning. They were no longer dealing with veiled threats and unsettling feelings. Someone was actively trying to harm Sarah. They couldn't afford to remain passive. They needed to understand the connection between Sarah and the organization, the secret her mother might have held, and why, after all these years, it had resurfaced to threaten Sarah's life. Mark said, "We need to find out everything we can about your mother's involvement. What she knew, who she might have trusted, anything that can give us an edge." Sarah said, "I need to know the truth. About my mother and about why I'm in danger. I won't let them control my life with their shadows and secrets." The realization that the danger was real, that it was directly linked to her unknown past, had ignited a spark of defiance within Sarah. Fear was still present, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was now intertwined with a growing determination to fight back, to uncover the truth, and to protect herself from the unseen forces that were closing in. The quiet life she once knew was gone, replaced by a desperate search for answers in the labyrinth of her mother's hidden history. The next step was clear. Delve deeper into Eleanor Vance's past and unearth the secrets that someone was still willing to kill to keep buried.